Welcome to Empowered by AI, the podcast for women entrepreneurs ready to harness AI to take their businesses to the next level. I'm your host, Michelle Muncie Silva, founder of Innovative AI Studios. You may have left corporate life to start this entrepreneurial journey, but you don't have to go it alone. Here, you'll find a supportive community of like-minded women and an invaluable thought partner each week, as my guests and I share actionable insights you can use right away. So let's dive in together. All right. So, Dawn, I am really looking forward to this conversation because as an expert in cybersecurity, I think you're primed to talk to us today about this intersection between security and AI. So, I am so glad to have you speak to us about this.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm excited. We're going to dive right in. So, what inspired you to focus on this intersection that I mentioned? How has your perspective evolved over the years?
Yeah. It's funny because I had this conversation with somebody last week, and I am risk wired. That's what they called me. You are risk wired. And I have to say that colleagues, friends, and family have been probably annoyed with me over the past 25 years because I do look at the risk side of things. I don't know why, but it's something that as far back as I can remember, I focused on risk. Not that I ignore benefits, but I just am attuned to that, not hype wired, but risk wired. And part of it is as a former attorney, you were always ready to have like arguments made by the other side and things were going to come up and coverage disputes. And so that it ingrained it even more in me. And then during the pandemic, cyber threats just got off the charts. They were so high. And remote work and everybody was new at it. And so I decided to write my book at that time to address human error because it's not to slap hands and say you're at fault, but lack of awareness will lead to human error. And there was a lot going on in the pandemic, and there's still a lot happening now. And then, in essence, you're adding fuel to the fire when you add a tool like AI tools, and there's many of them, that help the cyber criminals be better at what they're doing. So if you haven't gotten your ducks in a row yet for cybersecurity, now the game has been up leveled. And so what you didn't do before, you really need to do now because they are so much better, particularly at the manipulative emails, phishing emails, causing people to take actions without maybe thinking it through. And
Mhm.
so that led to this intersection of, and there was a lot of burnout after the pandemic with cyber experts, I have to say. And then came along ChatGPT, and then that, for me, it sparked a renewed interest because, okay, companies that may have said, I don't need it, I won't be attacked, I'll resist. Now it's, yeah, but the game has now changed and you really need to be aware. And
Mhm.
so that's what sort of sparked my interest in merging the two.
Mhm. And what are some of the trends that you've seen happening now? As a futurist, you've likely seen significant shifts
Yes.
in this over the past couple of years.
It's interesting because I just say if you are inclined to start a business, this is the season of startups, new businesses, and new and business changes because there's plenty to develop. And I've thought about this a lot, especially in this quarter. There's so much need for detection tools, detecting all sorts of things, authenticity, fakes, risk, safety, security. Then we also need auditing, monitoring, data management, risk management, and then the GRC tools, which may get modified in light of AI, and the experts in GRC are working on that. And then we need the training that has never stopped. Since I've been in cyber since 2012, the need for training of cyber awareness remains. And it's more important than ever because of the increase in the potential risk. So that's what I would say. There's opportunities. If anybody is looking to set up to become a vendor or a servicer or creating tools that can detect a lot of this stuff, which don't exist right now, there's opportunities. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're spotting you're entering an entirely new landscape.
absolutely. And it's funny because even with language, I'm a wordsmith. At my core, I'm a writer. That's my real love. And I did a challenge of short videos. Somebody challenged me to do 30 videos, and I did them this summer. I don't know why. When I look back at them, I think, oh my goodness. But I coined this phrase, welcome to the era of AI-ism. And the reason I did that was because we turn everything into an ism, and we make jargon and acronyms and words. And there's going to be a whole new array of words that come out of the next year or two that are all because of this AI era. And that's interesting to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I think one word's coming to mind for me right now. I'm with this group. One of the leaders of the group is calling it, okay, now this is janky. It's totally janky, but we're going to get through it. Okay, that's a word.
Yeah.
Janky AI video right now, but we're gonna get through it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Yeah. So
Now,
there's a lot happening.
oh, for sure, to say the least. God, it's like a fire hose right now.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I mean, I really do think that for small business owners, entrepreneurs, we're wearing all the hats at once, right? We
Yes.
don't have large teams, and cybersecurity feels daunting
Yes.
because that's not my wheelhouse, or that's not what I came into this thinking about. I'm glad I'm thinking about it, but it's not my area of comfort.
Right.
So what are some practical steps that we can take today to become more cyber savvy?
There's two things. There's cyber savvy and cyber hygiene, and we'll go through both of those. But cyber savvy, and I've talked about this before and written about it. There's really, to me, a few important things that you have to do if you're an SMB, small or medium-sized business. If you're a large enterprise, you have in-house teams working on this. But otherwise, you have to do training. And I know people resist the training of their teams and they don't have the budget, et cetera. But you really need consistent, regular training on risk awareness. It can be expensive or it can be reasonable. And sometimes people do it. I give free talks to organizations and people that I think need it and should know it. But the idea is to decrease human error. And I won't stop repeating that. That was the whole thread that ran through my book. So if you look at things like the Gallup poll that came out, I think it was in November, hybrid work, right? Part in the office, part at home. And they found that I think it was 58% of employees and 51% of managers said they had no training whatsoever on how to handle hybrid work. And my thought was, where does cybersecurity fit into that? Because if you're not even told how to manage a team that's part and part in the office at home, how are they even being told to manage cyber risk or AI risk? So that was interesting. And that's a training issue. Then the other thing is, and excuse my voice today, I'm a little bit dry. Diligent
You're doing great.
behavior is another thing. Diligence, vigilance, you hear about this. But if you have the risk awareness, then you should take the action in light of that. It's this kind of thing. And I always use cars and driving and running and walking examples. If you're at a street corner and you're going to run for the bus, and you know you're running with cars coming and you run out there, then you take that risk, right? You could have waited for the light to change and missed the bus. And this is the thing about awareness of risk and acting. Another thing is you're texting and driving. So let's get out of the security example, but really our wiring for safety and security and our willingness to follow it. Don't text and drive. Somebody will tell their teenager 20 times, don't text and drive. And finally, the 20th time it gets through because they need to hear it again and again. That's just how we're wired. The first time you say, don't text and drive, yeah, mom, right? So it's this idea of diligent behavior, risk awareness with action, and then good cyber hygiene. And that's the basics. Wash your face, brush your teeth. So this is passwords. Make them unique, make them strong. You say it till you're blue in the face. I had this cute story when I gave a talk at FIU in Florida during the pandemic. And this sweet senior asked me at the end, should I change my passwords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on all my accounts? God bless her, right? And I said, yes, please. Let's talk after. But that's just, she was so sincere about it and didn't know better. She did that so that she could remember her password on every account. So that's one thing. And then multi-factor authentication, I'll give another example of hesitancy. To the same group, I said, you're all old enough to have used phone books. You had to look up a name, you had to use your rotary or landline phone, and it may have taken you an hour to try to find someone. So why won't you take 1 minute to set up multi-factor authentication, have a code sent to you by text, or use an authenticator app on your phone, and you're saving your security and you're still saving time based on what you used to have to go through. So time shouldn't be an excuse. And then the other thing is patching and updates. So last week, Apple put out this really severe security update. Don't hesitate. So I shared it on LinkedIn, and then it was 9:00 and I thought, do I want to do it now? And I said, yes, you have to practice what you preach. So it takes time for it to download. Then your phone goes off, then you put it on. But I just felt so much better having done that. But not everybody's going to do it. And then something may happen and they lose the use of their phones. That's cyber hygiene. And then the other point is you have to plan to recover. Let's go from the premise that you're going to be attacked. You're a small business, it doesn't matter. They have the means to get in. People used to say, I don't have a lot of valuable data. Data is data. That's what they want. They don't care if you're large and small. If they get in easy, they take it. It could be one guy or it could be a ransomware gang. So don't assume people won't find you. So you have to plan to recover. And how do you do that? And all of this is in my book, but it's worth repeating that if you have your contact numbers of, say, your executives, your IT team, the planning group you assembled in case you are attacked, your insurance broker, your lawyer, if you keep all of that in your system online and your system is locked, how do you reach everyone? So you have to have an offline printout or somewhere in your phone, somewhere where you keep that plan separate from the data that may be encrypted. Now, all of this sounds basic, but it's really good hygiene and being cyber savvy. The other thing is data backups. You should have backups of your data somewhere. You can do it on premises. You can do it on a self-standing drive. You can do it in the cloud. And then funding. So a friend of mine lost her business after the pandemic because she suffered a ransomware attack, had no backups, no funding, and no cyber insurance. So what do? You close your doors, right? Everything's gone. So it's almost like a fire sweeps through, right? Everything's gone. So in that sense, you have to think of, if I don't have cyber insurance, do I have funding put to the side? If you don't have funding put to the side, it's like getting auto insurance. Inquire, go to a reputable broker. If anybody ever wants to know one, I'm no longer in insurance, but I could refer you to somebody. There's so many great qualified brokers that will help you walk through it and get the coverage that's appropriate for your business. Or otherwise, if you're fortunate enough to have a few million to the side that you can use to fund a loss, or a few 100,000, whatever it might be. So that's the whole sort of cyber savvy, cyber hygiene mantra.
Okay. That makes sense. And I appreciate that because
Yeah.
I don't have that handwritten hard copy or the printout. I don't have that because I don't even think about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you saying that is incredibly helpful because it's waking me up to this. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
And even the notes in your phone or favorite numbers, just have it somewhere, but not in your phone system, not in your network at work. You could still have it in notes in your phone, or there's nothing like having a printout somewhere that you keep just in case, especially if you do a lot of work from home, you can easily keep it in a folder. But the idea is, where can you get it quickly if you lose your network?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know you did bring up your book, and I want to talk to you about that because 33 ways not to screw up cybersecurity, right? It's praised for its practical advice.
It's very practical.
Yes. And that's what we need. We need that practical boots on ground advice. Can you share one or two key takeaways?
Absolutely. First of all, I have to say it's not for the IT experts. I did have a friend who was very advanced in IT, and he read it, and when it first came out, and he said, "This is consumer facing." And I said, "Exactly. I didn't write it for you. You could run rings around me with your knowledge.
You don't need it.
Don't need this. And I don't want to say it's for dummies because I never said that. I think it's a notch above that whole series. But the idea of it is you've got 33 ways and 3 of them may help you. And the other 30 don't matter. You pass the book to a colleague or even a family member. And they say, wow, I didn't think about insider attacks. Oh, I didn't know I shouldn't have that data in my spreadsheet. Oh, should I not open greeting cards, e-cards? Oh, there's a lot of basic things in there that we do day to day that you just have to be cautious. So a couple of things from the book. There's a couple of messages, and I was thinking about that today when I was thinking about meeting with you. And I did want to share one message that I have in the intro of my book, and it's still important. The loss of industrial information and intellectual property through cyber espionage is the greatest transfer of wealth in history. And that was General Keith Alexander who gave that quote a few years back. And when you think about the wealth that's been lost in the US alone, let alone worldwide because of cyber attacks, it's incredible. And the wealth is going to the cyber criminals, of course. The thing is, there's a wake-up call message in my book for you to embrace cybersecurity. If you're a leader, make your culture cyber resilient, which is the planning aspect. And it's like a timeline, right? The first part of the timeline is that here's where you try to prevent. Once you're attacked, you're in the second part of the timeline. Now you're trying to recover. Recovery, again, is your data and your money. How do I fund a recovery? Who do I call? Do I have my data elsewhere? Can I still do business? So remember, we're fighting hackers, not each other. Sometimes these things get very, aggressive. Because, well, who is the real victim? The company should have had better security. So now my credit card, and it's the back and forth. And keep in mind, the hackers are very savvy. This is very lucrative. They don't just do this for fun. This is multi-millions we're talking about. So we're not fighting each other. We're fighting the hackers. And that's something to keep in mind.
That's a good point.
Yeah. A couple of takeaways for it goes with this cyber savvy theme. And again, assume you'll be attacked and don't resist the safety and security measures. I call it the psychology of resistance, which I discovered in law school with the seatbelt and seatbelt use and people not using seatbelts. And if you look at the history of our safety and security to smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, the idea of not texting and driving, drinking and driving, all these things we try to implement. And we have free will. It's your level of risk tolerance if you're going to run across traffic and go for that bus and pray you don't get hit. It's all about what you're willing to take in your own risk tolerance. So again, the main points of the book, and I'm going to say this to my last breath, is training, diligence behavior, funding, and that funding is part of your planning of how you're going to deal with this. So your organization must move away from what they call a blame and shame culture. And this went on early on when I first started in the area in around 2012. There was this fear of employees having an email come to them and felt that they had done something wrong. And I'm going to be blamed and shamed. Why did I get the email from FedEx? Who do I tell? I'm going to delete it and hide. And so this blame and shame led to no communication. And something you have to do is open communication. Hey, I received this email, which looks fake. Who do I contact? Who do I send it to? And there's somebody in your company that should be handling it, or not. If not, you have to assign someone and figure it out. I received FedEx emails for years. And even though I reported it, they were savvy. They'd come back at me. My whole name in small letters, Dawn Kristy in small. A package awaits you.
I get that one. Mine's from USPS.
Yeah. And it's, you didn't write this properly, so delete. And the other thing is the idea of the culture of a company, whether you're 5 people or 50,000 people, the business leaders instill the culture. I remember in one of the companies I worked in, they had these placards. They were like those triangular placards that closed at the bottom. And they went on every cubicle, every lunchroom, every desk, and every month a new one came out. And again, it gets through, right? You see it repeatedly. If you see an email with the big box in the middle, don't click it. Basic. These things you have to just see over and over again. So generative AI introduces more risk to it. And I think we should get into that a little bit too, because
Oh, for sure.
that is definitely all of this. Add an exclamation point to it because of AI, which is a beautiful set of tools, no doubt. I'm excited as the next guy, the new shiny toy. However, because of the way I'm wired, I'm more cautious than normal. But you have to find your middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing is you've got misinformation, fraud, deep fakes, all these things that are happening. And my point today is to get through to a couple of your listeners and make a difference. We're in that season of It's a Wonderful Life. And it's if I change that person not to click on that, and then therefore that saved their business, and it goes down the line.
Yeah. Trickle down effect.
As
Exactly.
corny as that is, it really does happen. So cybersecurity is an investment and AI is an investment. So how do you protect your investments? The talk is always ROI and sustainable growth. And how do I do all of that? And the idea is you want to budget to protect those investments. You don't just make these investments and have no budget for protection. And if you are a very small business and don't have the budget for protection, then you have to just figure out through advice or getting help from a consultant or someone that can at least give you a rudimentary setup so that at least you and your small team are aware. And if there's any doubt, you contact each other. I have a gut feeling something's up. Did you see this? Before you do anything.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, we need to detect AI deepfakes. This is a big issue now.
Yeah.
And there are tools out there. Deepfakes are these AI-generated, synthetic, manipulated images. They're video, they're audio, and they're also voice. So I read a statistic today. I wanted to do some research. 2019 to 2020, those increased 330% if you put deepfakes. Last year, 3,000%. You don't even think of 3,000 as a percentage.
Exactly.
Pardon me. And so it was used primarily, of course, for non-consensual porn, and deepfakes are now seen in all sorts of entertainment and politics. And isn't that cute that he can create somebody that looks just like you? I'm like, no, I don't want a duplicate. I don't want a digital twin who goes in and tries to steal from a bank or something. I don't want it personally. But it's fascinating. It's interesting. People think it's great, and that's fine. And that's your risk tolerance. But the detection tools, MIT does profound work in this, and they have a media lab. So they've been doing experiments, and I can include some of these links either afterwards or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So they were running experiments where you could actually see side by side which person is real and which is fake. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
And then Trend Micro does a deepfake scan. And then also Intel and Sensity and more are creating these deepfake tools. And again, I say to anybody that's looking to start a business and looking for a need and where possibly VC money would go, I would think in the detection tools is definitely a bucket I would look at. The other thing is, who are your teams? So you either have an internal team or you have an external team. Easy. Your internal team, you may create a cross-functional team where you pull people from important departments, right? So you may have HR, legal, compliance, IT, all in alignment in a cross-functional team. Pardon me. Then you can have an AI ethics committee. Harvard just wrote a great article that I did a post on LinkedIn. And the need for AI ethics is so important that at least companies that can manage to do it are setting up committees just to address that one issue. Because we just don't know how profound this is going to be in 1, 2, 3 years.
Right.
So get the committee on board now, even if they're not doing much. And then you look at outside expertise, where it would be somebody like myself, and there's so many experts out there that do assessments, training, and strategic alignment. So you have to look at my AI strategy, my cyber strategy, my business strategy. How am I going to align all of these so that I'm in the best place? So those are all things that people can think about. And I wanted to go through two scenarios for you. One was like an AI loss, and the other was an AI win using these tools. So there's basically two scenarios. So the loss is, and you may have heard of this already, there was a $25 million wire transfer by an employee in Hong Kong, a woman who worked in Hong Kong for a UK multinational. And the strange thing is, she had red flags. She had been told about a secret transaction, and she received what she thought was a phishing email, and so did not do anything. And then she unknowingly participated in a Zoom call with the CFO and colleagues, which were now going to convince her to do what she didn't do before in the emails. And she actually, I think it was something like 15 wires for a total of 25 million, only to discover and call afterwards that everyone in that Zoom meeting was fake.
Oh my goodness.
So say you and I were fake, right?
Oh my
And
goodness.
this is just our persona, right? CFO was fake. All the colleagues were fake. And of course, they lost the money. And the thing that was weird is she suspected, and this one phone call to that CFO to say, you sent me that email and now we have the Zoom call. But again, you have to think of hierarchy and human nature. Am I going to question my superior who just told me on Zoom to do this and say, are you real? Because
Right.
how would you even ask if they're real if you didn't know that was happening? A finance clerk with some training on not making payments that seem, first of all, too high. How did she get the authority to do all that? You have to look at their internal guidelines. How did she get authority? It was broken into 15, so maybe each fell below her authority limit. Was it to a foreign bank so that account was closed? All those details have not been released. But talk about deception, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the idea of, and I actually say this, you have to consider the unimaginable at this point.
I was just going to say,
With
I
AI.
can't, it would not even occur to me that I would
Right.
be in a Zoom meeting with someone that's not real. But yet you see right now it's all over LinkedIn, everybody posting their digital twins, right? Oh, look, here's my
Yes.
digital twin.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
think, oh my God, we're there. Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is now, again, these people are creative. So now they've created, it used to be if you turned your head, it couldn't turn its head. So if you asked them to turn right or left, you'd see nothing. Now they've done it where you can see a full head, the full behind the head. It gets better and better because the people, it's the Wild West. You discovered this, we're going to do this. You discovered this, we're going to do this. It's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about a win because it's so rare that you hear about wins, but I love this. First of all, I'm a huge Ferrari fan. When I did this post, I put a big Ferrari that I got from the free stock images for this post, and it's such a beautiful car. And so the Ferrari story is that a CEO was impersonated in a scam attempt with one of his executives. And the executive stopped the scam through a very clever device, and I'll share to you what that is. So the scammer made several texts, first of all, which I guess in a way is stupid, but he sent all these text messages saying from an unknown number, so red flag, that we have an important transaction that we have to do, big acquisition, and it's urgent. So right away, this executive has to be thinking, why are you texting me this from an unknown number, right? Then he gets a phone call. And the phone call, the voice was scammed, and it sounded the same as this guy's Italian accent. But somehow this executive was, I'll use the word savvy again. Something does not feel right. So you know what he did? He said, what book did I recommend to you earlier this week? Click.
Uh-huh.
And so the lesson learned was, and they use this term in Italy, sotto voce, which is be cautious. And the idea is Have a secret word, phrase, or question that you use with colleagues. And this is true for families too, with fake kidnappings and being called that they have your daughter hostage and it's not true. Have a word or a phrase so that if somebody says that word, it's fake or it's whatever, where you would say, if I'm going to use this word, it's not real. So you say blue. Yeah, I'm really blue right now. And when you put it in the conversation, something. So
Mm-hmm.
this guy was smart enough to ask about the book. So of course the criminal didn't know. So that ended the deal. So
Yeah.
it's not always a failure.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes total sense. So there's a whole new level of literacy that you're making me aware of. So there's AI literacy, and
Yeah.
we're all encouraging people to increase their literacy in AI. And we're really talking mostly about generative AI.
Sure.
But it sounds to me like you're adding a completely different layer to it as well.
Yeah. There's benefits and risks. And you should know both, just like all these other things I've talked about so far. The idea of having a designated individual, having somebody that's more up to speed on the AI tools, on what's happening with ethics and privacy. If you're a small firm, you may not have a whole separate compliance team and a privacy officer. And now they're creating roles for AI risk officers, but the average small business won't have that. You can put together a team within your organization that will address this. Members from different departments, legal, if you have a lawyer on board, data scientists, and then of course, external consultants and advisors that can help you. So that's how you put it into practice. You really now have to say, how do I build a team or at least one person in my small business that handles this, that everything runs through him or her. And that's how you put it into practice. And so right now, cross-functional collaboration is very important
Hmm.
within organizations.
Yeah, I don't see how you could do this without that. It's like you can't necessarily tackle all of this solo. You need to at least reach out maybe to someone who can do a training with you to
Yes.
make you aware. And you oh, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. But you could also have them on call. You could have
Mhm.
somebody on retainer that's not in your firm that you're paying whatever a nominal fee to that helps you with staying up to date, does the training, and then as
Mm.
your go-to person, you won't believe what I just got. Can you text, you could text them, can you call me right back? I feel like I've got an incident in the making. So you might have somebody that you retain, which I do with people, so that you're not an employee, but then you say, okay, run it by me. What have you got? And it may just be something
Yeah.
simple, or it may be that you better call your cyber insurance broker because this is an incident. So it could run the full gamut, but you have to put it into practice by just you as the leader being aware and then having your setup internally to handle it.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to have where you feel like, okay, I have someone in my corner. If I
Yes.
go through this, I don't have to go through this alone.
And it's not the same as a coach, like somebody that would coach you through. And this is really like you say, your go-to person in an emergency. It's your ER.
Yeah. This is who you going to call.
We can call Ghostbusters.
Exactly. Exactly. So now you've mentioned AI's vulnerabilities. You've talked, obviously, the hacking, the privacy issues.
Yes.
And how do you think businesses can mitigate the risks, but still leverage the benefits, especially now that agentic AI is coming out? There is so much
Yes.
possibility with that to help people streamline workflows. How do we try to hang on to the benefits and mitigate the risks?
You have to make the effort. And believe it
Mhm.
or not, after working in cyber since 2012, a lot of companies don't make the effort. And I'm not saying that in any sort of nasty or hostile way. It's just some people just say, I'll roll the dice. And that's
Mm.
your choice. There are
Yeah.
businesses that just do that. It's not going to happen to us. We'll be fine. We're going after this and this. You need to have cybersecurity and privacy measures now more than ever. So if you already got those in place, great. Would you have to change something because of AI? Perhaps. And that's the idea of the vulnerability. So keep in mind that ChatGPT itself suffered a data breach last year. the actual chat bots. When OpenAI went into it, and they said it was like something like 1.2% of ChatGPT Plus, which is the paid members, because then you have your credit card on file, right? The freebies don't have their details. So you get the name, the credit card, at least the last 4 digits of it, and any other things you put in for a paid account. And the leaked data, they thought, oh, it's not a big deal. But I don't know what their membership is, but 1.2% of their members is quite substantial. I didn't look to do the math on that. But keep in mind that even these AI companies themselves have important data, and they're also possible targets. And hackers would love to get their data because
Of course.
yeah. So it's just like any other enterprise. Hackers are better at their work due to the AI tools. And so in terms of data privacy, there's some key questions that you can ask yourself. How much of your data do you want to expose or lose? And how many employees have access to the data? And this is tricky with the AI tools. And what are your data access controls? And I have a friend who's a privacy expert who feels none of that can really be controlled. There's ways around it. And I don't know if you heard about the Copilot faux pas. They have oversharing going on, so that
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Microsoft is trying to fix it. Maybe you've heard of this, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so you could read the CEO's emails and HR documents through
Mm-hmm.
Copilot. And these things come out very quickly. There's a lot invested. They're going to have flaws. So you have to think about, if I have a trade secret, a patent pending, anything that's crucial, do I want to put that in there?
Mm.
Do I really need the chatbot analysis on this? And this is where you have to think of what's important to you, not to lose, not to expose. Who has access? Who do I share it with? And those are, again, internal and cultural decisions that you
Mm-hmm.
have to make. It's your own risk management.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And how do we as solopreneurs or small business owners ensure the ethical use?
yeah.
That's
That's
no small task, right?
no, it's tricky because ethics is really about what is fair, what is right. And we're lagging behind. This will lead us into a regulatory discussion. We are
Mm-hmm.
behind in regulation.
Yeah.
And you read early on, probably since last year, the genie's out of the bottle, the horse is out of the barn, whatever expression you want to use. It's done, it's out there. So again, I did my research, and we're about to have a change of administration. So the AIEO, that was executive order by Biden, perhaps will be shut down on day one of the new administration. We don't know. But that was our federal attempt, national attempt at ethical use and the way that we use and secure AI algorithms and all of that. And it was quite detailed. And they just did an update in October on how successful it was. But again, come mid-January, that could change in
Yeah.
terms of that legislation. But we also have, you've always got the pioneers. One of them, of course, is California, where you are. And they created the safe and secure innovation for frontier artificial intelligence models. I had to write this out.
We like our acronyms to be long.
And get this, it was passed, and then the governor vetoed it.
I remember
And
that.
this happened with privacy too. Remember, it went back and forth. And so California tends to be a trailblazer, and then it bumps over to New York, and then everybody in the middle figures it out. But they wanted security protocols, risk assessments, third-party auditing, all those good things. So that's now in limbo. But there is a
Mhm.
federal bill pending, and it sounds just like the privacy scenario. The federal bill pending, and then it doesn't happen. And then the states end up being progressive: Colorado, California, New York. But there
Yeah.
is a federal bill, which is called the Algorithmic Accountability Act. And again, that's looking at the FTC having the power to regulate. And the FTC has come under a lot of criticism during this administration from all sorts of cyber experts and different things. So we'll also have to see where that goes, because it's pending. And again, with the new administration. So the bottom line for the US right now is we don't really have ironclad legislation for this. So when it comes to ethics, it's going to be almost like, I would say, on a volunteer basis, for lack of a better way to say it. You're
Hmm.
either a company that says, we're going to do everything we can to be ethical, despite that there's not ethical standards. And they may go back to sort of the GRC type thing, but there is no, that I found yet, enforced legislation in the US that's going to say, this is what you do to be ethical. And so you can garner it from other things like privacy and other rights, but there will always be those that attempt to do it and that those that just aren't concerned with it.
And that's where I think our education becomes so increasingly important. Being
Yeah.
aware, I
Yeah.
think, is a step that we can all
Sure.
take.
Yeah, awareness should be, I should get t-shirts, be aware, or just awareness. The one guy I did a podcast after my book came out, and he said, what you're really saying is we need awareness. And I said, exactly, that's my word, awareness.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop something you're not aware of. It sounds almost trite, but
No, the more you know. Yeah.
yeah. And
And
then there's all this legislation. There's charts on this about like data privacy and will you breach privacy law. There's the copyright issue is pending. There's all these things that are out there, and things are not 100% litigated or decided. There's some cases out there, but it's really early days to figure some of this out. And God bless the attorneys that are rolling up their sleeves, putting in long hours to figure this out. And
right.
also trying
Mhm.
to move forward with legislation, because we're a litigious country
Yeah.
and there will be things happening where people are going to sue because of this and companies didn't prepare for it. And then you'll have case law and precedent that sort of just leads the way. Also, insurance coverage disputes. That's something else that sometimes drives change. What's
Mm.
covered, what's not. And we're really at the early stages with this, of the merging of, or the intersection of AI and cybersecurity.
And you've helped organizations save millions through risk mitigation.
That
Can
hasn't
you
all been with AI though. I've
Okay,
had a longer,
that's
yeah,
obviously you
because
haven't had time yet. Give it
AI has
time.
been a couple of years. Let's be fair. Um,
Exactly.
you
Can
know,
you share a particular success story
well,
that
the first thing I want to do, I thought about this and I thought, first, I want to say, consider the unimaginable. And that's another mantra that's coming out now. I'll tell you one of the stories, but first I wanted to relay, which you wonder, why is this something that's relative to it? But I worked on the 9/11 attacks. I was at a reinsurer in Zurich at that time. And what I learned from that incident was I had a collaborative team like I never had before or will have after, because of the intensity of that crisis. And think about the tools we had in 2001, 23 years ago versus now, in all sorts of facets of what we do. And we had to analyze what occurred, loss values, and then reinsurance coverages during a very emotional time. But we did it. We were under pressure to get press releases out and all of that. But the reason I raise it is because you sit there and think, I wonder, will we see an unimaginable event again with AI? Whoever considered that? It's moving so quickly. And don't forget that there's a lot of nation state attacks with cyber. It isn't just guys in hoodies and basements. We're talking nation versus nation here. This is big. And infrastructure, going after our electric grid, going after our waterways. It could be really large scale. So I wanted to make that as a first point, that you have to consider the unimaginable, because in 2001 it was. And so one of the things that I've been successful in is helping people prevent employee manipulation by criminals. And one of the losses that's out there, it's called business email compromise. A lot of people haven't heard of it. Sometimes it's called, in insurance wordings, funds transfer fraud, or we might just call it as wire fraud, like the woman that wired the 25 million. That still comes under business email compromise. And the thing is, I've helped businesses stop wiring money based on my training and also being on the hotline when things were happening. Should we do this? What's happening? The FBI comes out with an annual report. It's called IC3. And for the last several years, BEC, business email compromise, is the highest value claim. People think it's ransomware and data breach, and those may have more volume, but the highest value is these BEC claims. And so through my work in insurance and risk management, that's where I have helped substantially. But I also saved companies money in the other things I've done, which is environmental pollution, professional liability, product liability, because I worked in insurance for a large part of my career. You ended up seeing all of these sort of emerging risks, and the companies try to transfer that risk or some of it with insurance, and then they try to handle other parts of it through their risk management. And so that's where I've had the success over a career of helping companies save money. And of course, in some cases, the insurance companies, which right now insurance companies are not in hot, the flavor of the month, which is a whole separate issue. But insurance has driven a lot of the safety and security controls that we live with, including way back in the day with the seatbelt defense, which I wrote about in law school, which triggered this whole interest in emerging risk, which was you're contributory negligent. If you don't wear your seatbelt, you'll get a lesser claim payment.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually people said, okay, we're going to wear it. There were better safety features. It took a long time to get people to wear seatbelts. It did not happen overnight. So that's the example I always go back to. The saving of money is of the insured or of the business itself, and also of the insurance company, because there's a lot of false claims and fraudulent claims that they address. So it's two sides of that coin. Now with AI, I'm certainly hopeful that I can help companies save money and save their business. I'm no
Yeah.
longer in insurance, but I know enough about it, and I know that it's in a stage where it's looking at the AI based losses and how that's going to be implemented in policy wordings.
You're going to help them put their AI in a seatbelt.
Clip it in. Okay, we're ready to drive.
Exactly.
And don't text.
Exactly.
And don't drink.
Exactly.
Stop.
We're bringing it all together.
Aren't we cute?
It's all coming together.
Yeah.
So, Dawn, this has just been so informative. What is next for you? Are there upcoming projects and
Yeah.
speaking engagements, initiatives that you want to share?
Absolutely. I am at my core a writer. And so I'm writing for HBR, Harvard Business Review. I'm writing my new book, which will be AI, of course. And I'm writing a novel, my first one.
Oh, how exciting.
Conspiracy thriller. And I'm in a writing group. For fun, I'm in a writing group and a music group. And tomorrow I'm actually reading an article I wrote at this Chicago reading event. So I'm really into sharing writing with others and writing. So that's something I'll do till the end, so to speak. But I have speaking engagements booked for winter and spring of next year, and a training workshop that I booked for winter of next year. I can't believe we're almost at next year, right?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
And then on the creative side, besides the writing, I'm creating a course. And I'm trying to figure out, and I may ask you for some feedback, for some market research, how to address the SMB market, small, medium business, that needs what we talked about today in a course. Because the large enterprises, it would be great to go in there. They're going to get high-powered trainers from the big tech firms, that's market to market. That's how it works. But even when I started the Cyber Dawn in Florida during the pandemic, and now when I wrote my book, and now when I added AI into the mix, I still feel that small businesses can do better every day. I really do, just with some knowledge. So I want to create a course. I don't know if it'll be completely online or if it'll be modules. I'm still working with that, or whether it will be live once a week. But I might ask some people I know for input on what they think would work best, including you.
Fantastic. Yes, let's do this. It's a much needed asset. I really do think, because as small businesses, solopreneurs especially, they don't have a lot of options for something that applies to them and something that's not huge corporate, right? So they do
Right.
need that specialization of someone that's thinking of them. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Oh,
being
sure.
willing to fill that gap.
It's my pleasure. And thanks for having me. I'm so
I
excited about your podcast. I
I
know
am super excited to
yeah,
have you. So I so appreciate it. I think this is a really important topic, and we don't always feel like we have access to experts such as yourself that can help us out. So I appreciate your experience coming to the table for the listeners.
thank you. Keep learning.
Thank you for tuning in to Empowered by AI. If today's episode sparked ideas, don't wait. Follow the link in the show notes to visit innovativeaistudio.com and download your free resource created to help you put today's insights into practice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with more tips, tools, and inspiring stories. Until next time, stay empowered and keep innovating.